القرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العظيم.
رب العالمين. Please remember in your du'as today, as we send the reward of this recitation that we've done for the sake of Allah to the soul of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all of the believers of the past, and especially remember in your du'as, in your thoughts and your prayers, the Rohingya of Burma, who it will not have escaped, I'm sure, any of your attention. The terrible genocide and ethnic cleansing that they have undergone over the last year and a half, with very little help and support from the outside world. Something that's been allowed to continue and is still continuing, and there seems to be very little pressure from anyone to really bring an end to it. We make dua that Allah keep them strong, keep them a lot of sabr in this great trial and tribulation, and the realization that فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, with hardship Allah brings ease, and with tremendous hardship Allah brings tremendous ease. Fatiha. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيا الإسلام ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. I'll just show you something since we're talking about this subject. And this very nice, not that I'm advertising it or anything, but it's a very nice Quran app where you can get the English and the Arabic side by side, and you can do things like that, and like that, and so forth. These are the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Imran. And it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that one recite this every morning at Fajr time. Okay, so this is a recommendation of the Prophet ﷺ. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. This verse here. We recite it at the time of Fajr, specifically, because verily the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the night and day are signs for people of true understanding. Okay? This is how it begins. This is not what I want to tell you about, but this is how it begins. And the reason for the recitation at this time, and I won't, again, this is not the place to teach you or to go into detail specifically, but just so that you realize how apt and how natural and how close to the fitrah, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is. When do you see the signs of heaven and earth? The creation of the heavens and the earth. When do you see them? The things of heaven and the things of earth. Okay? And the alternation or the changing of night and day. So Fajr time is the time at which night turns to day. Okay? It's the point at which night turns to day. Hence, اختلاف الليل والنهار. Alright? At the beginning of Fajr time, you will see the stars. You will see the celestial lights. You will see the heavens. Because the light of the sun is very, very dim and only on the eastern horizon. So you see the creation of the heavens. And as the Fajr time progresses, the light gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and you start to see the things around you. You start to see the rocks and the trees and the grass and all of those things around you. So you start to see the creations of the earth. So إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Okay? As you proceed through the time of Fajr, and really, if you want to do this properly, if you want to really experience these 10 verses, then what you do is go outside, or at least open your curtains. And I know most of you live in the middle of Birmingham, the only celestial lights you see are the fireworks. I get that. But, you know, if you get a chance, yeah, go out at Fajr time to a place where it is very dark, and you experience this. You can experience the heavens, you can experience God's creations on the earth, the natural world above your head, and the natural world around you, as the light grows through the time of Fajr, and as the night turns into day. Okay? And bear in mind that all the things that you see, the stars, the planets, the galaxies if you are lucky. Okay, if you're in a dark enough place, you'll see the Milky Way. Alright? All of these things that you see. And then all the things on the earth. Let's see the rocks and the grass and the trees and the birds beginning to sing. The birds begin to sing when it gets to a certain degree of brightness. You'll start to hear the bird song. Alright? All of these things that you're witnessing are things in and of themselves, but they are also signs that there is a creator. And I mentioned this to you, for those of you who were here yesterday, this is what I was talking about yesterday. That all things are things that exist in and of themselves, but they are in turn manifestations of the creative power of God that lies behind them, and the will and the knowledge and the wisdom and the precision of Allah that lies behind all of these things. They are manifestations of the divine names. Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir, Al-Hasib, Al-Adil, Al-Hakam, and so on and so forth. Okay? This is something we're supposed to do every day at the time of Fajr. And it's something that connects us to the natural world. So every morning, we are supposed to reconnect with nature. This is what this is about. Right? Had you lived even 100 years ago, this would have been, without central heating and, that sort of stuff. You would have experienced nature. You would have been freezing in the morning. Not in a nice, warm, toasty house that your hive has set to 23 degrees. Or your nest has set to 23 degrees. Alright? But you would have been freezing cold in the morning. And that's part of experiencing nature too. Getting rained on is part of experiencing nature. Okay? But you would have experienced, but we don't experience this now. And because of that, we don't experience the signs of Allah in the way that human beings are meant to recalibrate themselves. We don't get this recalibration. Right? But that experience of nature combined, what did I tell you yesterday, if you remember? That the revelation is a translation key. Islam translates the words of Allah into understandings that we can have. So this is what it is. The creation of heaven and earth, the alternation of night and day. This is God speaking. This is God, not just God creating, but God speaking, God communicating to you. But in order to work out what Allah is saying, you need these verses to translate it for you. So you start off with this. You start off with a contemplation of nature. You recognize that it is a sign of Allah, and then you go on to ask that Lord of yours. You move on, and I won't explain in detail, but you move on through creation, to God's names, to God's attributes, to God's essence, Subhanaka, and then to remembrance of the hereafter. فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. There is a hereafter that comes after this that you cannot yet see. Okay? And you keep going and you make dua, and there's beautiful tafsir of all this. However, what I want to draw your attention to is this. فاستجاب لهم ربهم أني لا أضيع عمل عامل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى بعضكم من بعض فالذين هاجروا وأخرجوا من ديارهم وأوذوا في سبيلي وقاتلوا وقتلوا لأكفرن عنهم سيئاتهم ولأدخلنهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ثوابا من عند الله والله عنده حسن الثواب. Okay? Your Lord hears, you make there is this remembrance of God, and there's a long dua. There are 3 du'as that you make. رَبَّنَا رَبَّنَا رَبَّنَا. Okay? And then, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُمْ. Your Lord responds. The Lord responded to them, saying, I will not suffer the work of any male or female to be lost. You are like one another. بَعْضُكُمْ مِنْ بَعْضٍ means you are like one another. You are just like one another. فَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا وَأُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ وَأُوذُوا فِي سَبِيلِي. And I remembered this because I was thinking about the Rohingyas. فَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا, those who have been forced into exile, forced to flee their homes, driven forth, suffered in damage and harm. Why? Why? Because they said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's why. Because of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And they suffered harm in the way of Allah. وَقَاتَلُوا وَقُتِلُوا. They fought and were killed. لَأُكَفِّرَنَّ عَنْهُمْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ. I will relieve their sins. I will take their sins away from them. لَأُكَفِّرَنَّ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ وَلَأُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ. The lam is important. وَلَأُكَفِّرَنَّ عَنْهُمْ. I will most certainly cause their sins to evaporate. وَلَأُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ. Or I should say, وَلَأُدْخِلَنَّهُمْ. And I will most certainly enter them into a garden beneath which rivers flow. مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ ثَوَابًا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. This is a reward from the very presence of God. وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الثَّوَابِ. This is the most beautiful of all rewards you can imagine. And so remember, لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد. Don't let the wanderings about the wanderings about those who disbelieve. And here, disbelief means those who have rejected faith. Not those who don't know, but those who have actively rejected faith, who are opposed to faith. Don't let that trouble your heart. And Allah is talking to the Prophet ﷺ, but He's talking to us as well. لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد متاع قليل ثم مأواهم جهنم وبئس المهاد. Okay? It is only a passing enjoyment that they're going to have. Don't worry about the English name, it's not very good translation. متاع قليل. This is only a passing enjoyment they're going to have. Their victory will be short-lived. Their exaltation will be short. Their exaltation, not exaltation. Their exaltation, their rejoicing will be short-lived. Afterwards, if they don't repent, of course, that is, if they don't repent and see the light and seek forgiveness, their abode will be Jahannam. But those who keep their duty to their Lord, for them are gardens underneath which rivers flow, wherein they will be safe forever. Wherein they will be safe forever. Nuzulan min indillah. This is and there's 2 meanings of this verse. The way it's translated here, a gift of welcome from their Lord. The other is, this is a revelation from God. I.e., this is a nuzulan min indillah. This is the promise of God that is coming to you. Okay? وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لِلْأَبْرَارِ. What is with Allah is better for those who are righteous. And then I'll leave the next verse because it's not quite related. But then the last verse. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اصْبِرُوا وَصَابِرُوا وَرَابِطُوا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Oh believers, endure, have sabr, help one another in sabr. Help one another to have sabr. وَالرَّابِطُ, and be ever watchful. And ever watchful here means ever watchful over yourself. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ, remember God. Be conscious of Allah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, in order that you may be successful. And the reason I wanted to mention this is our hearts are grieved. Our hearts are grieved by the situations that Muslims are undergoing all around the world in different parts. This is not something unusual in history. Muslims have suffered in many times of history, and actually probably have suffered much more than they are suffering now. But there is a promise from God. And the promise from God is not a promise merely that eventually you will be victorious. Eventually you will triumph. Eventually you will come out of this, when the entire eastern half of the Muslim world was decimated by the Mongols. Right? Baghdad destroyed, Bukhara destroyed, Samarkand razed to the ground. These are the great centers of learning, world centers of learning in that period of history. Half of the Dar al-Islam, the lands of Islam, were just basically overrun and destroyed. At the same time the Crusades were happening in the West, but the Crusades were like a trifle compared to what happened in the East. The Crusades were nothing compared to what happened in the East. Yeah? No one could have predicted that within 2 generations, the conquerors would have entered the religion of the ones they conquered and created a new civilization, a new Islamic civilization. So the promise of Allah is not just about this world. The promise of Allah in these verses is about the next world. That yes, these terrible things are happening, but don't lose your faith. Don't become frustrated and resentful and angry and hateful and all of these things. Why? Because night turns to day. اختلاف الليل والنهار. Night turns to day. At the beginning of dawn, you won't believe it. At the end of the dawn, at the end of the period of Fajr time, you would not believe how you could have believed otherwise. When you start off, and I speak as someone who spent a long time scanning the horizon looking for the first light of dawn in the freezing cold, you think it will never come. The dawn will never come. The light seems so far away. And by the end of the period of Fajr time, you think, was it ever dark? Was it ever dark? There's so much light. Was it ever dark? And this is the promise of Allah. That Muslims are being driven out of their homes, exiled, killed, persecuted. But the cycle will turn. The night will turn to day. Maybe in our lifetimes, maybe in generations to come, but definitely when it really matters, which is in the hereafter. So don't ever lose that hope. And don't ever disbelieve this promise of Allah, this nuzul min indillah, this revelation from God. Whether in your own lives things are very bad at the moment, or when you look around other people's lives and things are very bad, or you look further afield at Muslims who are overseas, or non-Muslims for that matter, who are in situations of persecution and hardship, the things that cause your heart to grieve. It's good that your heart grieves. That means you have compassion. But don't let that compassion twist into resentment, into doubt. Because compassion, if it's not joined with hope, it rots. And it rots into despair and frustration and resentment. Have compassion and have hope. Because the promise of Allah is true. Allah make it easy for us, inshallah. It's not a part of WinterSpring usually, but khalas, here endeth the lesson. Right, now there's no munshids today, guys. So, You all are the munshids. Okay, we're going to sing Qasida Burda, first half of chapter 3, but you guys are the munshids today. Alright? So, Bismillah. I hope you've, again, you're not trying to rest your voices now after the Yasin. So, let's I won't say let's rock and roll, that's probably not quite appropriate, but you know what I mean. Allah. Chapter 3 is the verse, the chapter 3 is where the Qasida really kicks off. First 2 chapters are introduction. Okay, first 2 chapters are introduction. Alright? The first chapter of the Burda is about, basically, is about the fact that you are missing the one you love. You're missing the one you love. You are chasing, but you can't find them. You keep on going and you keep on seeing things that remind you of your beloved, but you can't find your beloved. They are apart from you. And this is a very old, I mentioned, I think yesterday, I think I said something about all love songs are based on this, you know, since my baby left me. You know, I'm on lonely streets. This is basically half of all love songs ever written. Well, it's no different in Arab poetry. Half of Arab poetry is basically the same thing. It's love poetry. And the love poetry is almost always about my beloved, and she's gone away, and I'm so missing her, I can't find her, and so forth. That's what chapter 1's about. That's basically what chapter 1 of the Burda is. It doesn't tell you who the beloved is. It doesn't tell you who the beloved is. Remember, مولاي صلي وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم is not a verse of Qasida Burda. Right? That's not a verse of Qasida Burda. It's most likely that Imam Busiri did not write it. Right? Imam Busiri started off أمين تذكر جيراني بسلمي ما زاد دمعا جرى من مفرط بدمي. Okay? You don't know who the beloved is yet. Chapter 1 is just about my beloved is gone and I can't find her. Okay? Chapter 2, which we read yesterday, is why you've lost your beloved. What happened? What happened is you happened. Selfishness, basically. I was selfish, I listened to my nafs, and that's why I've lost my beloved. That's why why my beloved is apart from me. Chapter 3 is where you finally find out who the beloved is. If you were listening to the Burda for the first time, being read from beginning to end, chapter 3 is the first time you will realize who the beloved is. And that's what we're going to read. Half of it today. Half of it today. So who is the beloved? Imam Busiri says, I was ordered to be upright. I ordered you to be upright, but I didn't heed my own advice. I myself was not upright. So why am I telling you to be upright? Okay? I have not made much provision of prayer before death comes to take me. I have not fasted much or prayed more than is obligatory. Okay? Which contrasts completely with the one who prayed through the night until his feet complained of pain and swelling, while he bound up his insides against the extremity of his hunger, hiding his delicate skin beneath a stone tied round his waist, i.e., prayer and fasting. The two things that our author is saying, I didn't do much of this. Hence I neglected the sunnah of the one who did. Alright? And then you go on from there, and now he starts to describe the high mountains of gold sought to entice him. But ye in return showed them the true meaning of elevation. His situation of austerity and need only confirmed his indifference to worldly concerns. Dire need cannot assail such impeccable virtue. I was asking myself a question today. How much money is a lie worth? How much money would you lie to acquire? Now you probably wouldn't lie to acquire 50 quid, right? Or 20 pounds or something like that. But 100? 300, 500, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000? Just one little lie. One little lie. Yeah? How much? Well, there's the question. I can see people smiling. Yeah, especially when I start to go to 50,000. It's like, who wants to be a millionaire? You know? But this is the question. It's a measure of taqwa. What about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What are you saying about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Mountains of gold sought to entice him. But he showed him the true meaning of elevation. His need, i.e. his situation of being in need, only confirmed the fact that he was indifferent toward the world. His outward poverty was purely there so that we could see that wouldn't sway him. He could demonstrate that it wouldn't sway him. He wasn't bothered by it. Need cannot assail his level of virtue. How could dire need, and now, when you get to verse 33, now you start to get into it. All that, so far, is about perfect character. When you get to verse 33, you start to see something a bit different. Imagine you're hearing this for the first time. And you start to hear about this beloved that Busiri is saying, that his pain of separation from that beloved has made the tears flow from his eyes so much that they've turned into blood. Yeah, tears mixed with blood flow from my eyes. I'm crying so much in my loss, in my separation, in my grief, that it's like my tears have turned to blood. Who is this person? She must be very, very beautiful, you're thinking at this point. Yeah? Because he's a man, right? So she must be very beautiful. Or, if you were she must be from a very high tribe. Right? She must be the right qawm. Right? If you're this concerned about having lost her. Alright? But now you go, hang on a sec. No. How is he describing this person? Prayer, first it's a man. So you want me to kind of go like that. Second, yeah, that is, what are you talking about? Prayer, fasting, indifference to the world despite outward poverty. This is exaltation of character. But it's only when you get to verse 33. How could the dire need of such a person entice him to the world when, if it were not for him, the world would never have emerged from non-existence? That's when you start to think, oh, hang on a second. Who are we talking about now? Muhammad. Now, Imam Busiri can draw the curtain aside and show you who the beloved is. He's given you all the clues already. Muhammad, Sayyid al-Kawnayn wal-Thaqalayn wal-Fariqayn min Urbin wa min Ajami. And then the Burda proceeds from there. The rest of the Burda, from verse 34 onwards, is about Muhammad Rasulullah. The first 33 verses build you up to that point of revelation. Okay? This is what we're going to read today, inshallah. And you're going to be reading it with me. So because you're going to be reading it with me, how's our Daf players? We've got our young Daf players in attendance today. They're going to be showing us what they got. And you guys know, who do you follow? Me. If I slow down, you slow down. If I speed up, you speed up. Right? Nice easy tune to start with then, okay? مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم ظلمت سنة من أحيا الظلام إلى أن اشتكت قدمه الضراني وراني والشد من سراب أحشاه وطوى تحت الحجارة كشحا مطرف الآدم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم وراودته الجبال الشمال زهده فيها ضرورته إن الضرورات لا تدعو على العصام مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم وكيف تدعو إلى الدنيا ضرورة من لولاه لم تخرج الدنيا من العدم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم محمد. When I go fancy, you gotta keep playing. محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم نبينا الأمير الناهي فلا أحد أبر في قول لا منه ولا نعم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هول من الأحوال مقتحم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم دعا إلى الله فالمستمسكون به مستمسكون بحبل غير منفصل. And this is what we hear to do this winter spring. Make a connection with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We want to be mustamsikuna. المستمسكون به مستمسك بحبل غير منفصل. This is what we want. That connection, that rope that binds us to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That emotional connection that will never break. This is what we're looking for. دعا إلى الله فالمستمسكون به مستمسكون بحبل غير منفصل فاق النبيين في خلق وفي خلق ولم يدانوا في علم ولا كرم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم وكلهم من رسول الله ملتمس غرفا من البحر أو رشفا من الديام مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم وواقفون لديه عند حدهم من نقطة العلم أو من شكلة الحكم فهو الذي تم معناه وصورته ثم اصطفاه حبيبا بريء النسم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم منزه عن شريك في محاسنه فالجوهر الحسن فيه غير منقسم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم
خير الخلق كلهم.
So abandon what the Christians have claimed about their prophet, i.e. that he is God. Okay? Don't say that. Beyond that, say whatever you like in praise of him. Really? Anything? Yeah. Ascribe whatever you wish of nobility to his essence. Ascribe whatever you wish of greatness to his rank. How come? Aren't we allowed to make it? Isn't like a limit? Should we stop somewhere? What we say? There should be a limit somewhere, Imam Busiri. We're in conversation. Come on, guys. Keep going. There you go. How come? How come we're allowed to say all this stuff? Where's the limit? Where can we stop? Well, here's the problem. You can only praise someone to the extent of your knowledge of them. Right? You can't praise someone beyond your knowledge of them. If you don't know that I am a demon racing driver, then you can't say, oh, you know that Sheikh Asim, he's a really nice guy, he gives these talks, he does this mawlid and everyone is happy, all singing. But you're not going to say, and you know, if you've seen him around Silverstone, he's absolutely amazing, which I'm not at all. But you wouldn't know that about me, so you can't praise me for it. So there is a limit because of what you know about me, right? And here's the thing, you know where the Prophet is concerned? The fadl of the Messenger of Allah has no farther limit. فإن فضل رسول الله ليس له حد فيعرب عنه ناطق بفمه. There's no limit that can be expressed with the tongue of a human being, because we don't know the reality of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, guys, you can stop. And this is not from me, and it's not from Imam Busiri saying this. This is manifest in the hadith in Sahih Bukhari of the greatest intercession. The hadith of the great intercession that comes towards the end of Sahih Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ, you all know the narration. It's the one where we all on the day of judgment, we go to Adam alayhi salam and we make intercede for us, then we go to Nuh alayhi salam and he says nafsi, 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 and you go and you go and you go, and then you get to the Prophet ﷺ, right? And the Prophet ﷺ says, ana laha, meaning لِأَجْلِ هَذَا خُلِقْتِ. For this, when we all go, when all of mankind, we'll already be there because we are the ummati of the Prophet ﷺ. We don't go to Adam alayhi salam. We don't go to Ibrahim alayhi salam. We go to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's whose flag we head for. Okay? In previous nations, they don't know about this, so they can't go there. Disbelievers. It's not only believers, disbelievers, hypocrites, people who commit shirk, sinful people, all these people, they will all be wandering around looking for someone to intercede for them. All of us will be doing that. And eventually everyone, all of humanity gathers by the Prophet ﷺ. Think about this, imagine it. All of humanity gathers at the feet of the Prophet ﷺ and says, intercede for us, O Muhammad. People that drew cartoons about the Prophet ﷺ, the people that abuse the Prophet with all of these horrible things that they say, they will be gathered at his feet. Intercede for us, O Muhammad. And the response of the Prophet ﷺ is very interesting. He doesn't say, okay. He says, Ana laha, which means, it was for this that I was created. It is for this moment that God brought me into existence. Actually, all the message the Prophet ﷺ brought, that's kind of a side benefit. The reason the Prophet ﷺ was created was to intercede for mankind on the Day of Judgment. And it's on that day when the Prophet ﷺ will go into sajda beneath the throne of Allah, and Allah will inspire a new revelation to the Prophet ﷺ. Words of praise that no being in existence has ever spoken before. The Prophet ﷺ will praise Allah in sajda before his throne in a way that Allah has never ever been praised before. Not by any angel, not by any human being. The Prophet ﷺ will praise Allah in that way. on the Day of Judgment, until Allah says to him, Ya Muhammad, irfa' ra'sak, ishfa' tushaffa. O Muhammad, raise your head, intercede, your intercession has been accepted. And then Allah will raise the Prophet ﷺ to the Maqam Mahmud, what is known as the praised station, or the station of praise. And it's only then you and me and Imam Busiri and everyone else will get a glimpse of who the Prophet ﷺ really is. It's called the Maqam Mahmud because it's called the station of universal praise, because all of creation will praise the Prophet ﷺ on that day. All of creation will thank the Prophet ﷺ on that day. So you've got to look beyond the words here. You've got to look beyond the words of the hadith and see the Prophet ﷺ and know that what you are seeing, that beauty is a shadow of the real beauty. That shadow is a black and white. That beauty of the Prophet ﷺ that we can experience here in this world, this is like a black and white drawing. It's on the Day of Judgment that you will see the reality of the Prophet ﷺ. فَإِنَّ فَضْلَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ لَيْسَ لَهُ حَدٌّ فَيُعْرِضُ عَنْهُ نَاطِقٌ بِفَمِهِ. And this is what this means. Which is why Imam Busiri says, praise him however you want to. It won't meet up to his reality. Because you've not experienced that yet. And you've not experienced it in anything in your life. And nothing in your life will prepare you for what the Prophet ﷺ will say to Allah on the Day of Judgment. How the Prophet ﷺ will praise Allah on the Day of Judgment. This is not from me, this is from Sahih Bukhari. This is from the Prophet ﷺ himself. So this is not some weird Sufi thing, guys. Right? This is about how you read and you understand what the Prophet ﷺ himself has said about his own rank. There is a hadith, it's a weaker authenticity, but it's still, permissible to use, that the Prophet ﷺ said that if I had a true friend on this earth, it would be Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. That Allah is my Khalil. Because only Allah knows me. Only Allah knows me, so only Allah can be my Khalil. Okay? So this is something that is an aspect of the Prophet ﷺ that we need to understand. And it's in this beautiful poetry that it comes out. And this is why the Burda, which is it's very short. It's only 140 odd verses. In fact, this is longer than the Burda. The soliloquy is longer than the Burda. But the Burda has had actual scholarly commentaries written on it, where each line has been dissected, and the evidence for that line found in the Quran and in the Hadith and in the sayings of the Salaf and so forth. And this is why it's not just accepted among you and me, common people. This work is accepted among the ulama. It's accepted it has found acceptance among scholars. And scholars tend to be generally very critical of things. Okay, you're a scholar of tajweed and you're sitting there and you're listening to somebody reciting Quran. You don't want to be the guy doing the imamat when there's someone who's studying tajweed behind you. They're going to be sitting there like this and going, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. That was a mistake. And I've seen people who've been praying behind people wincing, actually going like that in prayer. Alright? Hey, everyone's a critic, right? So, but the more you know, the more critical you are. But the scholars have accepted Qasida Burda. Great scholars, great hadith scholars, and they tend to be the most critical of all scholars. Right? They've accepted the Burda. Why? Because everything Imam Busiri says in here is traceable back to the words of the Prophet ﷺ himself. And that's why we recite it every year. That's why there's shifa in it. There's healing in it. It's recommended, for example, if someone is sick, that you read the Burda, all the Burda from beginning to end in your house, to bring shifa to that person. Why? Because this is basically hadith. It's all drawn out of hadith, or a person's natural response to the hadiths about the Prophet ﷺ. That's how you should approach this. So we'll go back a little bit, we'll read that last bit again and finish inshallah. Sorry, there's a lot of lessons today, but what comes, comes. Ready guys? Duff's up. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم دع ما دعته النصارى في نبيهم واحكم بما شئت مدحا فيه وحداكم وانسب إلى ذاته ما شئت من شرف وانسب إلى قدره ما شئت من عظم فإن فضل رسول الله ليس له حد فيعرب عنه ناطق بفم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله ما شاء الله ما شاء الله Allah. So let's move on to the soliloquy, inshallah. Shazam? I've done my usual. You know my usual, isn't it? Left me. Oh my God. Hey. Yesterday we looked at the names of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of the names of the Prophet sallallahu as described by the full moon. And today, inshallah, we're going to go on to chapter 2 of the soliloquy. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Chapter 2. Prayer of Ibrahim, in which is described the building of the Kaaba by Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam, and their fervent prayer for a prophet to be sent to their descendants. So, here what we start to get into in the soliloquy is some of the foretellings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of the signs of the coming of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the first of those signs that of the coming of the final prophet, the Arabian prophet, would be sent to the world, was actually the building of the Kaaba. This is the first sign, which occurred probably around 1500 BC. That's to say about 2000 years before the Prophet ﷺ. This is the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam built the Kaaba, as you'll see. And when they built the Kaaba, at the end of that they made a dua for Allah to accept it. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Oh Allah, accept this from us. You are the one who hears and who knows. And they continue this dua, and the final dua is, Oh Allah. As you'll see, I won't go into it here, but as, Oh Allah, send a prophet. Send a prophet to these people. And this is the first of the signs of the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, the dua of the friend of God. So we'll learn about it today, inshallah. صلي يا ربي وسلم على نبينا صلي يا ربي وسلم على على حبيبنا. I ask you of your knowledge. Has it reached your straining ears how prayers were called from Becca's vale and borne on desert winds, aloft until they reached the higher platforms of the skies, where seraphim, celestial attendants, beat their wings? Ascending high, spreading word, the word of Ibrahim, who stood upon a hovering stone with dust upon his hands, and dust upon his blessed robe, and water on his brow, and to the word of Ismail beside his father blessed, alike with mantling of prophethood, divine address. The angels, ornamented, feather-winged, did confer amongst themselves upon the prophet's earnest orison. Indeed, a seraph of their midst at once embarked to earth, conveying news upon his tongue and rock upon his brow. This starless weight of ebon from Abu Qubais's hill had long declined from Eden, alabaster bright, until the darkly deeds of Adam's scions rapidly immersed the sacred mass and blackened it. Withal it was preserved and carried by the angel to the hand of Ibrahim, who placed it in his mighty house, the Kaaba he had raised. He, prophet, and his prophet's son, those highest stationed men, this hallowed host of heaven, did reflect upon their words. Did they know of the greater will? Did they know of the plan inscribed, incised, and destined on the tablet by the pen? The predetermination of the answer to their call, yea, when the angels heard of it, they wept with awe, enthralled. By virtue of his dear friend, Allah exalted would attend and answer the sincere plea by course most manifest, supreme. For God Almighty had decreed that he to Becca's vale bequeath the most superlative bequest. Such was the Prophet's true request. O Lord Most High, accept from us, Thou art the hearing, knowing one. May we and our progeny submit ourselves unto Thy way. Reveal for us exalted sacraments, that we may Thee obey. Accept from us our penitence, for art Thou not beneficent? For nations of our offspring send a prophet from amongst themselves, who shall recite Thy verses high, and teach Thy book and sanctify, transmitting wisdom verily. Thou art almighty wise. Which is a direct translation of أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم ربنا واجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذريتنا أمة مسلمة لك وأرنا مناسكنا وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا وابعث فيهم رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياتك ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة ويزكيهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم صدق الله العظيم. O Lord Most High, do sanctify the one prophetic seal, and with your grace perfume the place His blessed form concealed, and elevate and consecrate and hallow evermore Medina's earth, Jerusalem, and blessed Qurra, exalting He whose sandal made them pure. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik alayhi wa ala alihi. MashaAllah. Tomorrow, chapter 3. Actually, it is technically next week. The Islamic week begins on Sunday. Begins on Sunday. Yawm al-Ahad.
Yeah.
Inshallah. I'd like to welcome our dear friend, Mawlana Sheikh Shemus Tabriz, who is someone who's been with us from the beginning, where WinterSpring is concerned. He always comes every year. He doesn't speak every year, and he's very patient with me in that regard. And he actually says to me, he says, always put me on the substitutes bench. If you need someone to talk, then please call me. But if I don't talk, that's fine. And it's very rare for a scholar to say that. For a scholar to say, I'll come, but I don't want to talk, this is very rare. So it's something to be appreciated. He is, among other things, he is one of the main instructors and developers of the sacred texts syllabus, which is, mashallah, producing senior advanced students of knowledge and soon-to-be scholars, inshallah, at a rate of knots, I have to say, mashallah. Although with some very, very rigorous instruction, so we're very happy to have him here. He's going to be talking about the topic that all of our scholars are talking about, which is some personal reflections, inshallah, on how to connect to our Prophet, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I have to say, actually, it would be remiss of me not to say that Sheikh Shemus is also the husband of our sister Farzana, and Farzana is the main dudette in the youth program. She arranges every year, mashallah. She arranges the youth program. There are apparently around 50 kids in the youth program this year who are enjoying themselves downstairs at the moment, as we are hopefully enjoying ourselves upstairs. Okay.
First try to have a get this thing on.
You know a true mu'allim when he doesn't know how to clip a mic on.
Here we go.
People like me know how to clip mics on.
Ready, people? Ready. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya al-mursaleen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad tibb al-qulub wa du'a'iha wa afiyat al-ajsad wa shifa'iha wa nur al-qalb wa diya'iha. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilman yuqarribuna minka bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. If we can maybe start, inshallah, with the Fatiha for Sayyidina Nasir's mother, who I know had a second stroke a few days ago.
Did for yesterday.
Yeah, so inshallah, we can start with the Fatiha. So I've done something that I rarely ever do, which is actually make a few notes. Because Dr. Austin called me a few days ago and said, what was it yesterday? And asked me if I could do the talk today. And usually I'm very hesitant, I choose not to. I prefer not to be honest, it's not really my forte. However, the last week or so I've been in one of those reflective moods, because it dawned on me that come mid to late November this year, it will have been 15 years exactly since I formally started studying sacred sciences. Yeah, so 15 years formally. It started before then, but actually where I had that moment, that epiphany, whatever you want to call it, it was actually a night where I literally was tossing and turning the whole night because I'd heard about these classes, and I knew I wanted to be a part of it, but I didn't. And looking back now, I didn't really anticipate what that meant. But at the time, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So that was about 15 years ago. And I was thinking about that, and then it suddenly dawned on me that I've recently also celebrated my 33rd birthday, which means in about 2 years' time, I would have been studying the sciences for more than I've not been studying them, which is a scary, humbling thought. So that's been something that's been on my mind for a while now. When Dr. Asim said actually this year we're dedicating to just personal reflections and reflections on how we're trying to implement the Sunnah within our life, it was good timing actually. And any other day I probably would have said, no, get somebody else to do it. But I thought, you know what, I've been making a few notes and it might be worthwhile sharing those. How useful they are, I don't know. But inshallah I will try and try and make them relevant in some way, inshallah. And I've made notes, like I said, so every now and again I look down, but that's just because I don't want to go off topic, because I think it is worthwhile sharing these, inshallah. So I think it's worthwhile. So my students here will know this story already, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but it's worthwhile for the rest of me just to kind of start the beginning of the journey, which was that fateful night 15 years ago, where I was tossing and turning, and I knew these classes were starting in the morning, and at the time they were a couple of hours after Fajr, so I was just there raring to go. And I remember as Fajr came in, I got dressed and I was out the door, and I knew this place was in Washwood Heath, but about 15 minutes into the journey I realized I didn't know where Washwood Heath was. So I asked a few people. I mean, there's not many people knocking around at that time, so whoever I could find I asked, and eventually they pointed me in the right direction, and I ended up somewhere on this big road that was Washwood Heath Road. Yeah, tell me about it. So I ended up on Washwood Heath Road, and then it suddenly dawned on me that Washwood Heath Road isn't a small road, it's quite a big road. If anyone's walked down it, you'll know. So it took me about an hour to get there, and then I navigated Washwood Heath Road for another hour or so. I walked literally the length of it twice. I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest. I thought there'd be a big masjid with probably big lights and a minaret and something that said, pointing downwards, this is where studies happen, right? It wasn't that at all. Eventually, the person that I was trying to get hold of picked up the phone. Now, in those days, you didn't have Google Maps, so there was no Googling it. And when you had a phone, it was invariably pay as you go. And if you were 16, 17 at the time, you had no credits in your phone because you didn't have any money. And because the weekend, whatever money I had gone, so I was waiting for my education maintenance allowance, whatever we used to call it at the time, to come through, and obviously it was always late because I'd always miss a lesson, because that was that. So it was a case of miscalling. So I was reliant wholly on miscalling. And there's a detail I missed out actually, because I didn't set off immediately after Fajr 1. I mean, when you're 17 and you're a lad, right, as desperate as you are, if you're up the whole night, 3/4 of it was spent thinking about knowledge, and a good quarter of it was spent thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast. So I think I had a good paratha and some karak chai too, to be honest. So anyway, so I ended up there, and I miscalled. At the time it was Sid Nasser, and he was sitting in the class, and eventually picked up the phone. So obviously we exchanged some rough words first, and then he told me that he gave me some directions, and I ended up at Bruce Lane. And far from a masjid with lights, it was a battered old shop front with what was at the time a broken window, and it had like this MDF board, and it was behind an old bus stop which was littered with graffiti. I remember thinking, this can't be it. I mean, this can't be what I've just stayed up the whole night for. This is not where scholars are produced. And that was the thing, because when I first started that journey, I had a very naive understanding of what knowledge was, and what study was, and actually what I wanted to achieve from it. Because my idea of knowledge was that it was just a vessel that you just filled. So there was an absence, there was ignorance, I needed to learn something, so you went somewhere, you found somebody who had that thing, and then you sat with them for long enough, and eventually they filled your vessel and you just left, right? And what that then meant was then you become the person who fills the vessel for other people. You answer questions. It's just, knowledge was learning what's right and what's wrong, or teaching people what's right and what's wrong. And that's dangerous, to be honest. Looking back, that's dangerous, because the idea that you're learning right and wrong is very appealing to the nafs, because the first thing you do is, when you're learning what's right and what's wrong, all you see is what's wrong. You don't see what's right. So you go through a period where all you see is mistakes, and I didn't have the words for it at the time. I expressed it as, people don't pray correctly. Everyone is just, they don't do the sajda right, and the ruku is done too fast and the rukn is not completed, or why do people have money and not go to Hajj, or someone hasn't given their zakat, or all of these things, mortgages are haram, all these random things that would just come to mind. Any opportunity to say something wrong, rather than actually focus on things that were actually which were right, and that's appealing to the nafs. Looking back at that now, I think, so I went through a period of feeling embarrassed that's how I saw knowledge. Because that very first lesson, when I actually turned up and I sat there and the person asked me at the time, the teacher said, so what have you studied? And I proudly, chest out like a cockerel, I just said, I've read Quduri, right? Proudly. And Quduri is like an old 500-page manual of fiqh. And I knew that thing inside out because I didn't really know Arabic, so I compensated by really knowing the English very well. So I sat there with my chest out and I said, Quduri, as if to say, test me. Right? And I remember how I felt. I remember thinking, test me on it, anything, and I will answer that. Because when I was at college, and maybe some of you went to college, it was a case of you just sat there almost like the Dalai Lama. And people will come to you and ask you a question, you almost raise your hand and say, you can, that sort of very naive way. So it was just rights and wrongs, and you just answer people's questions because you think that's how life works. People have a very clear, a specific question, and then you give them a very specific answer which you found in a book that you happen to have read. And you almost imagine fiqh is a manual which is very prescriptive, that has the answer to everybody's conceivable question in perfect order. So as you encounter them, you happen to be reading that bit. And that's not how life works, but that's how you approach it. I mean, again, you don't have the words for it at the time, but I'm kind of reflecting back on my life when I was studying at the time. And because you see more wrong than right, you've got to ask yourself, where does that actually stem from? And the thing is, when you're seeing wrong constantly, there is, deep down, there's an anger there. It comes from the nafs, but it's actually anger. And anger, and doctors are psychiatrists, I'm not going to step into the issues here, but when I say anger, I don't mean that it's a vicious type of aggressive anger, but it comes from a place of anger. When you see wrong all the time and you feel like correcting it, it doesn't necessarily come from a good place. And when you're a young man and you're 17 and your hormones all over the place, that doesn't help either, to be fair, right? So it's very easy to become an agent of the wrath of God. Right? So you almost come down on everybody, just wrathful stuff, yeah. Everything is an opportunity to tell somebody they're doing something wrong. And every time you do that, it makes you feel powerful because you've now put the world to rights. Yeah? And doing that all the time is dangerous because you completely you get completely owned by that sense of anger, and you don't even see it anymore. So initially you may see that, okay, maybe I didn't do it right. I mean, I recall incidents like that, but eventually it becomes, you kind of raise yourself on a pedestal above everybody else. And the only thing more dangerous, I suppose, than, I mean, you said wrath, the only thing more dangerous than being self-righteous and angry is believing you're doing it for God. That's the dangerous thing, you see. It's one thing having a chip on your shoulder with the world. It's a whole different thing when that chip on your shoulder is because you believe it's the right thing to do and you're doing it for God. So it's something that I think everyone wrestles with when they're young, and anyone who studies the sacred sciences, or maybe in other aspects of your life, that is there. I think people who enter marriage, in the first few years, it's no different. Yeah. So for me, that was a real. When I look back at the time, I just see somebody who was naive, somebody who was ignorant, somebody who was self-righteous, somebody who had, maybe there was that, there was that anger there and it just needed direction. And I was embarrassed of that for a long time, actually. When I look back just a few years later, I thought, did I really act like that? Is that really me? But actually, more recently, I've been thinking, I'm not embarrassed of that anymore, because I see that as a necessary part of the journey. It's actually a necessary ingredient of knowledge. You have to have ignorance in order for you to go on a journey to find knowledge. And to be honest, you need to have some self-righteousness, some even maybe a bit of arrogance to be, I don't know, stupid enough to dedicate your life to it. You know, you think, I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing this to save the world, you know, at the cost of yourself.
You need the fire, and fire sometimes comes from arrogance.
The fire in your belly, yeah, that's it. And the thing is, you almost need to have that, and you need to learn to manage it, right? So actually, that's where the teacher comes in. That's where the teacher comes in. It's the teacher that holds you by the hand and guides you and makes sure that you never step out of line, sort of thing. And they see that there is that rage inside you that maybe you don't see. And that rage manifests in different ways. I suppose the biggest thing that I learned from it is what's covered from you is a sense of compassion and mercy for those people. That's just not there. So I started drifting off my notes where you better go back to it. There you go, it didn't last long, did it? Yeah, actually no, I'm close to them. So the thing that's missing is a sense of compassion and mercy, because that's not something you read in a book of fiqh. You know, it's not something you kind of read about necessarily. You may hear anecdotes about somebody's life and how, but compassion becomes that thing that you just think it's a part and parcel. You believe you have compassion because you're a Muslim, and if you learn, you know, I mean, you can have a very superficial understanding of what compassion is. You can have a very superficial understanding of what mercy is, but actually, when I look back, I think a lot of that was missing. So how do I define compassion? I'll kind of link it in with what, you know, relating back to the Sunnah in a second. The Quran, you know, the Rahman and Rahim are the two words that are mentioned, I think, most often in the Quran. You've got to ask yourself, how can the Quran be enveloped entirely by these two words, Rahman and Rahim? Right? And what's the difference between the two? One is compassion and one is mercy. So my understanding of it is, and this is a culmination of 15 years worth of study, this is a snapshot of me as I am now. And I've described a snapshot of me 15 years ago. So in about 15 years time, inshallah, whether I'm here or whether I'm not here, and inshallah this will continue, if I get the opportunity to come back here, you'll probably hear another version of this. Yeah. But as a snapshot of how I see it now, compassion, to have rahmah for somebody is almost like an outcome as a result. So, and that means that actually to be merciful towards somebody could be a very selfish act as well as a selfless act. Yeah. You can be merciful, you can let somebody off because it suits your agenda. Yeah. So it suits you, therefore you can be. You may not, but that is possible. Whereas Rahmaniyya, to be compassionate is far deeper than that. Compassion means that not only do you be merciful towards somebody, but you want to be merciful to them. You actually look at them with the eye of mercy. They're two fundamentally different things. And when I started that journey 15 years ago, I think that was really missing. And spending time with my teacher, I remember, and Dr. Austin will remember this too, and people that are students of Sayyidi Sahib will probably know this. Or if you've got your own teachers, you probably experience the same thing. Which is, we would be there with our books open early in the morning for hours on end, studying. And what's happening is we're just becoming more and more particular about, you know, rulings, and it's all regimented. And then somebody would walk into the class and ask my teacher a question, and he would just almost very lackadaisically, he would just give him an answer, and it'd be something like, "That's fine." And we'd sit there scratching our heads, thinking, and you've experienced this, thinking, where's the fiqh in the answer? Where's everything we've been doing? Where is all of that? It's fine. And for years, it would be sitting there thinking, where is the fiqh in this? And every now and again, one of us would pluck up the courage and ask the question, and we'd be shut down very quickly. And 15 years later, I look back at that and I think that was the fiqh in the answer. That Sayyidi Sahib, in his years of study, what he did was actually very similar to what Steve Jobs once said when he was asked about technology. He said, the best technology is the technology that disappears. Because the end user shouldn't ever see the technology. They just should see that it works, and it works seamlessly. So the best fiqh is the fiqh that just disappears, it just isn't present, it's just the answer is as simple as that person goes away with not only a resounding yes, but almost the confidence that comes with the, yeah, that's fine, which is missing when you're at the beginning of your journey, because it's, yes, and now I feel the need, don't go anywhere, I feel the need to explain to you why it's a yes or, and usually why it's a no, because I need to keep answering this question until you're satisfied that I have lots of knowledge, right? And you should come back to me again with another question. So we used to get that a lot with Ziggy Sub, and I've learned over the years that actually, to be a teacher is to hold that student by the hand and know that they're going to go through that fire in their belly, which is a necessary ingredient of studying ilm. And they will go on a journey which initially will be very naive. And that journey will be an outward journey, because in your mind, talab, you probably come across the phrase talabul ilm, seeking knowledge. And as a beginner student, talabul ilm, you start looking for which country to go to or which scholar to find, study in. Yeah, the best one in the world. Exactly, because you are the best student in the world apparently, so that's why you deserve the best teacher. That's the kind of mentality that you have. And he watches you, and I remember Sayyidi Sahib used to do this. He used to say to us, these people just go off to different countries, and again, I couldn't find the words for it, but now when I look back, I think there's so much hikmah in that, because the journey is in the wrong direction. Talab isn't an outward journey to find the best scholar, it's actually an inward journey. And if you relate that back, and if you read my notes, that's exactly what it says. To find the, where is it? I'll show you. Yeah, it's the best. That's exactly what I wrote down. That the journey inwards is literally you keep seeking until you find the best version of you. That is, for me, I believe that's the sunnah. By the way, that's my definition of the sunnah, which I might touch on when I get to it, inshallah. So it's a journey inwards. Now, if you keep going outwards, you kind of distance yourself from the thing that matters the most, which is your spirit, your heart. How are you going to find compassion or mercy? Because that's an inward thing, that's not an outward thing. You can hear anecdotes all your life about somebody else's compassion, but that doesn't make you a compassionate person. That doesn't make you a caring person. It doesn't make you a considerate person. If you want to be considerate, if you want to be compassionate, if you want to be knowledgeable even and conscientious, and all of these things that actually make you a good person, right? You need to turn that journey on its head and go inwards. And this is where a teacher comes in, because the teacher holds you by the hand, knowing that you're going to make that journey outwards first, and he has to stop and he has to watch you do it, and he has to guide you, but he can't do the journey for you. And then on your journey outwards, he keeps a hold of you until eventually maybe you make that turn, the left turn, back towards you going inwards. And then the signs start coming out, and the signs are that maybe the way you speak to your teacher changes, the respect becomes less superficial and more real, and there is a difference, and you can see it. There's a superficial respect, and then there's a real respect, and I think if you've been teaching for long enough, you see that in your students. And if you've been in any hierarchy where you're supposed to be the superior or whatever, you know who's genuine and who's not genuine. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. So maybe the teacher sees that in the student, that the change is happening. It may be in the way you respond to a question, or maybe the way you ask a question. That's the sign that actually the turn is happening. But eventually you turn and you start coming inwards, and then you start really manifesting and living what it means to be compassionate. And then you stop looking at people as just as an agent of God's wrath, but rather you start seeing people as an agent of God's rahmah or rahmaniyya, even His mercy. When someone comes to you with a problem, you don't first look inwards and think, this person, my God, how could you have ever done that? Right? But start really looking at them sincerely and say, this person is on their journey, and you know what, in a way they're better than me, because they were big enough to share a problem which probably, if I was in their position, I wouldn't be big enough to share. That takes experience, it takes time, which is why talabul ilm is, scholars would say you wouldn't consider somebody a shaykh until they're at least either at least they're 40 years old, or they've at least studied for 40 years. There's something about time that is necessary, and that for me is again the journey outwards has to happen before the journey inwards happens. Yeah. So it kind of linking it back to the Mawlid and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, I think compassion is for me, it's the difference between me today and me 15 years ago. In just one facet in my life, my wife would probably disagree, but in just one facet in my life, in terms of how I suppose I approach teaching and how I maybe interact with my students, is compassion is at the heart of it. And I don't want people to confuse compassion with being firm. That's the other thing, because my teacher wasn't always soft, right? Exactly. He wasn't always soft, because you know what, part of compassion is that you have to sometimes be firm. This is why, so I've always wondered, why is your teacher compared to, is referred to as almost like your father, your spiritual father, or your shaykh is your spiritual father? Think about it, because what do your parents have for you? They have unconditional love, they're compassionate, and compassion in the sense that they don't just want you to, it's not that they will do what it takes for you to do well, because they desire and want for you to do well. It's inside them, they can't help it. And your teacher shares the same thing. It's he wants you to do well, he wants you to excel. It's not that he will just give you the tools to do well. That's for him success, that want for you to excel and be better than him, be greater than him, or achieve more than him. So part of that means that you have to face the wrath of your teacher sometimes. And the wrath can be sometimes he'll bear down on you. I mean, I remember one occasion, and this is when PTS was in its early, path salvation was in its early days, and I've shared this story with some of you. And I remember I was cleaning the madrasa because I used to have my classes very, very early. And I used to do Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and I think Mondays, around 4 days, and we used to do hours, and so we used to do 4 5-hour classes, and then you'd be home for a bit, and then you'd be in compulsory, the masjid down the road, across the road, studying, and then be back in class again. So at best, you may have got 6 or 7 hours in the weekend. So I'm there vacuuming, and then I put the vacuum away, and my teacher walks in and he says, "You missed a bit." And I just went, missed a bit? How on earth have I missed a bit? And he looked at me and he said, "Make sure your intention's pure." And he said that to me, and at the time, I'm saying it honestly because I realized that my own stupidity, otherwise I wouldn't share something like that. So it's not to put my teacher down. It's actually genuinely to say, at the time I was a bit, I've slept 6 hours in an entire weekend, week in, week out, and my teacher tended to purify my intentions. And years later I look back and he was absolutely 100% right. There's no qualms about it, he was right. Because what he saw in me was, he noticed the things that only a father notices, which is the moment where maybe I raised my shoulder slightly. It's not what I said, it's not what I did, it was just he noticed some physiological change in me in the moment, in the instant, which made him say, "Make sure your intentions are pure." And it took 12, 13 years for me to really embody that and think, you know what, he was absolutely right. And some of that comes out, because when you're a teacher and you see the same thing, you think, it doesn't, the hardest thing about being a teacher is sometimes you have to teach a lesson that the student doesn't see in the moment, and it means they don't like you for it in the moment. They don't ever say it, and they'll probably never tell you, and they probably don't even realize it themselves. But you know that actually it comes from a place of compassion and a place of love. It doesn't come from a place of anger or a place of, you don't want that person to do well. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which I don't want to keep going myself all the time. The hadith it's from the Jawami al-Kalim of the Prophet, which is the concise speech of the Prophet ﷺ, which is that love for your brother what you desire, or love for yourself. That's the bedrock of the Sunnah. That's compassion, where you genuinely desire for somebody to do well and excel as much, if not more, than yourself. And for me, that was the ingredient that was missing 15 years ago, and something that I feel I'm more in touch with now. But I would never be arrogant enough to say that I've completed that journey, because the other thing I started by saying, I believe that knowledge is a vessel, and I realize how stupid that is now, because it's not. It's a talab. The journey is literally, it's almost like a divine joke almost, in the sense that it's a journey that never comes to an end. And that's the thing. We live our life thinking that we're going to achieve something, but actually there's no achievement. The achievement is that you get to the end of your life and you're still on the road on that journey. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us good intention and give us all the tawfiq to maybe go on a similar journey and a better journey, in fact, and give us the tawfiq to embody compassion and love and mercy towards our fellow brothers and sisters, and to be able to live that compassion and be sincere both with the people on the outside world, but actually importantly with our own families and the people that see us intimately, because they're the people who can often neglect. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Now you know what I mean by personal. Personal reflection. MashaAllah, barakallahu. That was beautiful. I think you should write a book. You should call it The Stages of the Sun. Inshallah. Yeah. Inshallah. The journey to God is a journey inwards. Yeah. The first hadith of Sahih Bukhari is about intentions, but Hashem is talking about إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ فَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Actions are my intentions. In the version in Sahih Muslim, there's two versions of the hadith. There's several versions of the hadith, the one in Sahih Muslim. The Prophet gives an example, and he says, مَنْ هَجَرَ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. من كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله. Whoever does hijrah to God and His Messenger, his hijrah is indeed to God and His Messenger. ومن كانت هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. Whoever does hijrah for, paraphrase, any other reason, their hijrah will only be counted as being for that which they intended it for. Okay? The point about this is the middle bit. That the real hijrah is not from Mecca to Medina. It's not from a non-Muslim land to a Muslim land. The real hijrah is from where you are to where the Prophet ﷺ is. From a place of wrath to a place of compassion. From a place of judgmentalness to a place of tolerance. From a place of vengeance to a place of forgiveness. That's the Prophet ﷺ. That's who you're making hijrah to. And on that hijrah, if you intend that hijrah, that inward journey, from the worst part of yourself to the best possible you, if you intend that journey, Allah will be with you at every step. He will carry you like He carried the Prophet ﷺ from Mecca to Jerusalem. And when you get to Jerusalem, He will take you beyond the 7 heavens. That's the hijrah of the believer. That's the mi'raj of the believer. Intend that. Intend the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet, when you're with the Prophet ﷺ, you are with Allah. Because Allah is with the Prophet ﷺ. Allah make it easy for us, inshallah. Let's do a qasida. Do everyone a quick stand, stretch your legs. You're ready. Sheikh Shamas has just asked me if there are any singers here today. And I said, So we're going to do a qasida, we're going to do the qasida Muhammadiyah. And this is how we're going to do it. You guys are going to, this is called, this form of singing is called by me today, the ship and the sea. Okay? I am the ship, you are the sea. You give the waves, I'll give the boat. The waves are Sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu ala. I need a nice deep sea. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu ala. You just keep going. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi. No matter what I do, the sea doesn't concern itself with the ship. You just keep being a sea. You've got half a sea at the moment, ladies. I'll be the ship. أشرف العرب والعجم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد خير من يمشي على قدمه صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد باسط الماء في جامعه محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد صاحب الإحسان والكرم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. 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 صلى الله على محمد. And that was your practice. Now we're starting properly. صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد أشرف العرب والعجم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد خير من يمشي على قدمه صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد باسط الماء في جامعه صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد صاحب الإحسان والكرم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد تاج رسل الله قاطبة صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد صادق الأكوان والكريم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد ثابت الميثاق حافظه صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد طيب الأخلاق والشيم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد رويت بالنور طيبته صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد لم يحزن من الحدث على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد حكيم بالعدل ذو شرف على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد نذير الإنعام والحكم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. محمد خير خلق الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله. I mentioned that this year what we want is these personal reflections of our shuyukh, about their connection to the Prophet ﷺ, or how to connect, I should say, to the Prophet ﷺ. But I said as well that it's not only sheikhs who connect to the Prophet ﷺ. You all have a connection, or you may have a connection to the Prophet ﷺ. And I've asked for, I asked you to write down your reflections. Okay, I'm happy to read them out if you wanted me to do so. So there is a sister who has written one, and And I wanted to read it out because I found it very, very beautiful. And I won't mention who it is, obviously. But she said, I grew up in a culturally conservative Muslim family. We knew our shahada, but Allah was only mentioned as angry and punishing. Whilst the name Muhammad featured very widely in the family, brother, uncle, grandfather, 3 first cousins, Muhammad, the Prophet of Allah, was never mentioned except insofar as a hadith might be paraphrased to highlight how wrong somebody might be about something. Look how Prophet Muhammad reacted when ... The purpose of the comparison served to be corrective through criticism and manipulation. With shame, I can say that for a long time the Prophet of Allah had a mythological status for me. Then I learned that our love for the Prophet ﷺ, she learned from these gatherings, that our love for the Prophet ﷺ can be a turbo boost to salvation. Initially, this confused me. She said, this is what I learned, this is what we were taught. This confused me. Why not respect? Why not obedience? Why love? These are things, respect and obedience, I know how to do those things. Working on this like a puzzle, I came to the understanding that knowing leads to loving, but being known can lead to an even greater and deeper love. It was only last year that I realized that the Prophet of Allah ﷺ knows me, really knows me. This is my connection to Rasulullah. I am someone whose heart is lonely and anxious. I've never really had the feeling of being totally looked after. There are beautiful people in my life who try, but that perfect balance is never quite struck. To be known by the Prophet of Allah comforts a void in me. In turn, I want to love the Prophet of Allah, and love is born of knowing. I think this is why we have been taught to grasp the central character of the Prophet ﷺ, so that we can enter into this cycle of learning to love. Because Ahlul Muhabba Taru. This is based on a famous saying, Ahlul Niyya Saru, Ahlul Muhabba Taru. The people of sincerity walk the path to God, but the people of love fly. And that was her reflection. So it was a very beautiful reflection. If any of you would like to give a reflection, then please you can pass it to one of the admins. If you want to write it down, you can pass it to one of the admins. Inshallah, one of the nights we'll have almost like an open mic session. If you want to say it yourself, you can say it yourself. I can't give you as much time as I give the shuyukh, but because you're not shuyukh, you don't need so much time. Shuyukh need 20 minutes to say what can be said in 3 minutes. If it's me, I need 40 minutes to say what can be said in 3 minutes. But you guys, 3-4 minutes, inshallah, if you wish. Barakallahu fikum. Let's do the names of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah. Oh, and I need to make a very important point at this juncture, I give you a very important instruction at this juncture. Tasbeehs and clickers down. Tasbeehs and clickers down, please. The salawat that are read in the names of the Prophet ﷺ, we calculate them separately. Okay? So they calculate it separately. Yesterday, we managed to do something of the order of 300,000 hadith in this gathering, which means that in the first 2 days, we have read, collectively, 500,000 salawat on the Prophet ﷺ. That's in 2 days. That's you guys. It's not us. That's you guys. Please keep going. But for the Asma'ul Nabi, tasbeehs down, clickers down, it'll be counted separately. Some of the admin staff are counting how many of you all are here. They're going to assume that you're going to read it for everyone. You're going to read Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam for everyone. Okay? And I have to say also, I want to just to, before we start, a special salam to those who are watching online, whether on Facebook or YouTube. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Mum and dad, whichever one you are watching on, Assalamu alaikum. They're in South Africa, so they're watching from there. Bismillah. Duff players ready? Already? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على من له أشرف الأسماء سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حميد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا محمود صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أحيد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا وحيد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ماحي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حاشر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا عاقب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا طه صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ياسين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا طاهر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مطهر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا طيب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا سيد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا نبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رسول الرحمة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا طيب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا جامع صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مقتدي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مقافي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رسول الملاحم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رسول الراحة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا كامل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا إكليل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مدثر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مزمل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حبيب الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صفي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا نجي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا كريم الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا الأنبياء صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا خادم الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا محيي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا منجي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مذكر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ناصر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا منصور صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا نبي الرحمة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا نبي التوبة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حريص عليكم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا معلوم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا شهيد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا شهيد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا شهيد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مشهود صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا بشير صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مبشر سيدنا منير صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا داعي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مدعو صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مجيب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مجاب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حفي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا عفو صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ولي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا قوي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أمين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مأمون صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا كريم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مكرم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مكين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا متين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مبين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مؤمل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ذو قوة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ذو حرمة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ذو مكانة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ذو عز صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ذو فضل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مطاع صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مطيع صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا قدم الصدق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رحمة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا بشرى صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا غوث صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا غيث صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا غياث صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا نعمة الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا هدية الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أرض الخاص صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صراط الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صراط مستقيم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا ذكر الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا سيف الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا حزب الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا النجم الثاقب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مجتبى صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا منتقى صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أمي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مختار صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أجير صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا جبار صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أبو القاسم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أبو طاهر صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أبو طيب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا أبو إبراهيم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا يشفع صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا شفيع صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صالح صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مصلح صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مهيمن صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صادق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مصدق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صدق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا سيد المرسلين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا إمام المتقين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مقيم السنة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مقدس صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا روح القدس صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا روح الحق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا روح القسط صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا كافي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مكتفي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا بالغ صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مبلغ صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا شافي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا واصل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا موصول صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا سابق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا سائق صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا هادي صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مرشد صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مقدم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا عزيز صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا فاضل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مفضل صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا فاتح صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مفتاح صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مفتاح الرحمة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مفتاح الجنة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا علم الإيمان صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا علم اليقين صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا دليل الخيرات صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مصح الحسنات صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مقيل الأحرار صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صافح الزلات صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الشفاعة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب المقام صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب القلم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مخصوص بالعز صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مخصوص بالمال صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا مخصوص بالشرف صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الوسيلة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب السيف صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الفضيلة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الإظهار صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الحجة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب السلطان صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الرضا صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب الدرجة الرفيعة صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب التاج صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صاحب سيدنا خطيب الأمم صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا علم الهدى صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا كاشف الكرب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا رفيع الرتب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا عز العرب صلى الله عليه وسلم سيدنا صائر الحج صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. اللهم يا رب بجاه نبيك المصطفى ورسولك المرتضى طهر قلوبنا من كل وصف يباعدنا عن مشاهدتك ومحبتك وأمتنا على السنة والجماعة والشوق إلى لقائك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وسلم. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على روح سيدنا محمد في الأرواح وعلى جسده في الأجساد وعلى قبره في القبور وعلى موقفه في المواقف وعلى مشهده في المشاهد وعلى ذكره إذا ذكر صلاة منا على نبينا. اللهم أبلغه منا السلام كما ذكر السلام. والسلام على النبي ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله. السلام عليك وعلى آلك الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليك وعلى أزواجك أمهات المؤمنين. السلام عليك وعلى أصحابك أجمعين. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. سلام على قبر يزار من المعين. سلام على الروضة وفيها محمد. سلام على من زار إليه ربه فبلغه المرغوب في كل مقصد. سلام على من قال للرب من أنا فقال رسول الله أنت محمد. سلام على الملهوف في أرض غيبة ومن خصه الرحمن بالفضل والمجد. نبي هباه كل زلة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بحبيبك المصطفى عندك يا حبيبنا يا سيدنا محمد إنا نتوسل بك إلى ربك فاشفع لنا عند المولى العظيم يا نعم الرسول الطاهر اللهم شفعه فينا بجاه عندك اللهم شفعه فينا بجاه عندك اللهم شفعه فينا بجاه عندك اللهم يا رب بجاه نبيك ومصطفاك وحبيبك ومجتباك وأفضل من أجاب دعوتك ولباك خلص أعمالنا ونق قلوبنا وعاملنا في الدارين برضاك ونجنا من الفتن كلها ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين ولا أقل منها واغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولأشياخنا ولمن له الحق علينا ولجميع المسلمين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على حبيبنا وشفيعنا وطيب قلوبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم تقبل منا هذه المجلس عندك. Allah, we ask you and we beseech you by your beautiful names, your Ismul A'azam, the name by which you turn away no dua. Allah, we ask you that you accept each one of our intentions that we've come here today with. Allah, allow us to become people who please your Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allow each one of our lives to change because of these gatherings. Allah, allow our intention to always be renewed when we come and allow us to take the best of these gatherings. Allah, raise the rank of our Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allow him to be a role model in our lives so that we may live pleasing to him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah, allow each one of us to have the best of this life while we're here. Allah, allow us to live as long as life is good for us and take away our life when life is no longer good for us. Allah, allow each one of us to live a life in which we please you and your Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah, forgive us for our sins. Allah, those sins that we committed in private and in secret and those which we did openly, Allah, give us the shame to stop. And Allah, give us the ability to make amends. And Allah, you are the one who is as-Sattar, you cover our sins. Allah, cover our sins in this world and in the Akhirah. Allah, allow us to benefit from His shafa'ah without Him knowing and seeing our sins. Allah, allow our parents to always be by our sides. Allah, bless them in health and Allah, give them the best of this world. Allah, allow us to always be obedient to them and for us to be the coolness of their eyes if they're with us, and allow our children to be the same to us. Allah, allow each one of us and give us the ability so that we are able to benefit from this month and increase us inshallah. وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وطيب قلوبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. بسر سورة الفاتحة. Please make another Fatiha just with the intention of my mother's salvation.
MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khair to all of you again. Don't forget to write your salawat on the board, especially gents. I've got a personal dhann of the gents, good opinion of the gents, and assuming that you're reading but you're too shy to write the number down, please don't be shy. We won't take a photograph of who's written down 10,000 salawat. So please write your number down. Ladies, mashallah, you carry on what you're doing. Right? Please also, however, don't forget to pledge your salawats that you read outside this gathering on the website. Salawat, Durood Sharif is not just reserved for when you come to WinterSpring in the gathering, it's for the whole 12 days and for the rest of your life. Remember, the idea here, guys, of getting you to pledge is not so we can, well, actually it's a little bit so that we can boast to the Prophet ﷺ. It is, I have to be honest, right? But the primary reason to get you to pledge to do whole of salawat during your normal lives, when you're at work and at school and all that sort of stuff, the reason for that is to get you into the habit of reading salawat, to get it on your lips, so that after the 12 months you've got a good 12 days practice at it, and you can carry on after that. You can just keep going. Okay? So pledge a decent number, right? Sometimes that's
1 million. We've hit 1 million so far.
we've hit 1 million with what?
Online.
Yeah, no, but if we including the ones, the days?
No.
Ah, good. So the pledge count has hit 1 million so far. That's okay. It's okay. We can do better. So let's do better. Go home and guys, seriously, right? And I don't mean to dismiss any of you. I know there's little children doing it, but sometimes I see so and so, Abu so and so has pledged to read 100 salawat. Come on, man, you do more in your prayer. You do more than in your prayer in one day. All right? Let's get the decent numbers up there, guys. Jazakallah khair. We'll see you all tomorrow 6:30. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.